And we are live.
Yeah.
Welcome, Alex. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, chat. This is the first ever Hedron live stream on the Hedron YouTube channel. It's a pretty exciting day. It's the 22nd of the 2nd, 2022 here in Australia. I think you guys are a day behind, but it's an ominous numerical day. We just want to welcome everybody. And how have you been, Alex? How's the sleep going?
It's going acceptable, It's
You're
getting
getting a
there.
few hours here and there?
Yeah, enough. So we're yeah, it's exciting though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. How's it been, the whole process, like leading up to it in terms of the busyness in your life? Like, I mean, I see you online all the time. Like, it's like, when do you actually sleep or something? Like, occasionally there's a couple of hours that you're not in the Hedron chat sort of answering questions. And I'm like, I must be asleep. But then all of a sudden you pop up and are answering another question.
Yeah, usually when I'm sleeping, right? I'm like in and out of it, and I just check the chat if there's anything I need to say. I say it, and then I go back to sleep. If not, then I just ignore it.
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience like this in your life before, where you're the kind of like the head coach and you're like got everything on your shoulders?
I mean, I do for my day job a little, but it's that ends at like 6 p.m. every day, right? Where this never ends. There's constantly, it's basically 24/7.
Yeah. Yeah, full on. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we're just going to be going through the.
First casualty.
I've got a table which is like terrible for something up onto it.
Oh wow.
So yeah, we're going to be going through. How does that sound? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go through the audit. Maybe show some of the testnet stuff and just kind of talk about what launch is gonna look like over the next probably, I guess, week, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
depends where you live. But
Actually,
I think
let's
it's gonna
let's
be the
let's
25th.
let's start off at a bit more basic level. Let's just can you just give a quick overview of what Hedron is and what your intention for Hedron is?
Yeah, so this is Hedron's complicated, but the short of it is that it's designed to just complement Hex, right? It's it allows you to mint free tokens based on your Hex stakes performance and how long you've served within them. It allows you to use your Hex stakes as a form of collateral for borrowing, and then it allows you to actually move Hex stakes in between wallets. So it does that through a couple of ways. The minting side will work for all stakes in existence, but the borrowing and the being able to actually move the stakes in between wallets part is going to be restricted to an encapsulated stake within Hedron. But it's really just about bringing that optionality to hex stakers and enabling new game theory to be built on top of hex, and ideally pumping hex's price. Every aspect of Hedron is designed to complement the positive price action of hex.
I mean, that's what really attracted me when I first started learning about it, was just how price positive this is going to be for Hex. It just gave more reasons not to sell Hex, more reasons not to emergency end stake. And, like if you do need a bit of cash while you're waiting for your Hex stake to come up, you've got all of these other options.
Yeah.
And I kind of just see that as all price positive for Hex. And I really feel like it's going to be rocket fuel for Hex. I think it's been incredibly well thought out and designed. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about like when you first got the idea and how it evolved?
Yeah, so it's been evolving over, you know, I'd say at least a year. But yeah, it really started off as like this idea of bringing a token that represents T-shares. It's kind of like the core piece of it. But I really wanted that to be something you could borrow, because like one of the problems you have with any asset that appreciates greatly, like Hex does, is that if you're ever to sell it, you're likely looking at some hefty taxable events. So if you can have a system that emulates a borrowing system, and you can remove middlemen, you can remove counterparty risk, and a lot of the negativities that come with that, that's something that's incredibly valuable in its own right. So to enable that, you need to obviously have some kind of free market supply. So it's kind of where that duality of minting and borrowing comes from. And when you're going to be doing borrowing, you need a way to prevent people from essentially ending their stakes, right? Because they have to be able to use them as collateral, and that has to be enforced, or else everyone will just borrow and end their stakes, and then you have no collateral on the back end. So the tradable stake portion was kind of added on to borrowing because we already had to have it encapsulated, and it was no significant, or it was a very insignificant amount of work to make that tradable. And from that point, you can assign the NFTs to it and allow them to be traded as NFTs, but it also adds additional game theory to the system by allowing you to, number one, move like mintable supplies around without like actually having to mint it, like if you wanted to include it in the sale of an NFT.
Mm.
So, really it's kind of just been an evolution from like the idea of borrowing and then enabling minting and then doing tradable stakes, and then kind of connecting the three together in interesting ways that bring a lot of awesome game theory to Hex.
Great. And so it's obviously it's launching without any admin keys, so it's going to be completely immutable. No one's going to be able to change it, including you. There's no sack phase or anything like that. Your sack phase essentially is just buying Hex stakes, either native stakes or new ones through the Hedron contract, which will give you a little bit of extra optionality. And of course, you wanted to get it audited, I guess for the dual reason of seeing what they could come up with in terms of recommendations, and also just to know that your code is all clean and fine and safe to use and all of that. How has the audit process been for you?
I mean, I don't know if anyone's seen the Richard Hart video where he talks about Hex's audit. Hedron's audit has gone very similarly. You spend a lot of time talking to them and getting them to understand what you're doing with your code, and that takes a few iterations through like their preliminary reporting system where they're just getting stuff wrong and you have to correct them and be like, no, that you have a wrong idea here. It's actually this, and then they fix it and so on. You go through that a bunch of times, and eventually you come out with something that's acceptable, I guess. Yeah, that's probably the hardest part. Is like they understand the language, they understand Solidity well enough, but actually trying to understand the logic in between all of the various contracts. And Hedron does some complex things because it's actually 3 smart contracts that are all like linked together. So you deploy the main one, and then once you do that, that main one deploys the second one, and then that one deploys the next one. So you end up in this kind of like complex linking system that's largely for security, so that we can isolate. You can isolate the stakes from the thing managing the stakes from the thing that mints and borrows tokens. So you have like these layers of isolation between those functions. But that's not something typically done when you're making smart contracts. So I guess it's understandable they would have some questions.
Awesome. Okay, well how about we look through the audit, and they brought up 15 issues that have been dealt with, and so we can just talk through those. Talk through those, and you could just give us a little bit more background about each of those decisions.
Yeah, let me. I've actually got that here. So let's do.
And for anyone who's listening, the audit is public. It's on the CertiK website. I think if you just
I can actually put the link in.
We can put the link in the chat, and it's worth reading. I read all of the hex audits that I could, and that economics audit was a bit tricky with all that
that was a big
mathematics going
headache.
on.
Yeah.
Like there is obviously, technical limitations with a lot of our understanding of solidity and all of these things that we're not exactly sure necessarily what, the audits are talking about. But, everything's a learning process. And so let's talk through it. Have you got it up on, can you bring it up on screen?
Yep. Oh, gotta hit the allow button. All right.
Fantastic. So let's view the PDF.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'm just gonna scroll down here.
Oh, yeah.
So, is that coming through correctly?
Yeah, that looks great. Yeah, and if we just scroll down to where the issues are, there's a list of the issues, and I was thinking we could just talk through each of those. That's it.
Yeah. So these are the 15 issues that were found.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna scroll down to the first one here.
Yeah.
So it's a lengthy thing. So I'm gonna...
Oh, there. I think you just passed it. Was that it?
I think it's just a summary. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna use the scroll bar. There it is. So first issue, HCK01. So this is informational. So this is one I did not fix. Largely, what this is saying is Certic wants there to be some events emitted on, like I was just talking about, where you have that interaction in between the three contracts. They would like to see in between those functions some events be emitted to the chain. And the thing with events is that to do that costs not an insignificant amount of gas. So these would be events that would provide no use to the user. And I made the decision I'm not going to make everyone pay extra gas for events that are never going to benefit them. So this was one I just acknowledged and chose not to fix. Moving on to HCK02. This is kind of deep in solidity a little, but a function with an external type is a little bit cheaper than a function with a public type. And there were like one or two that were mislabeled public when they could have been external. So I went through and fixed those.
Mm-hmm. And what actually is informational? What does that mean in terms of the severity?
That means it's not really important. It's not going to affect the code in any way, like in how it functions. Like in this case, like you can see where it says gas optimization. That means this is going to be a gas optimization to do. If I go back to the other one, it's just a stylistic thing. It has none of these have any bearing on how the contract actually functions. They're just very, very minor issues. So, so this one we did fix. I did change a couple of those to external. There were a couple I couldn't fix, but that's largely because we use OpenZeppelin as the basis for the smart contract that make all the smart contracts that make up Hedron. So the thing to know about that is like OpenZeppelin's like a standard in the ERC20 ecosystem. So if you're going to build anything, you start there and you add all your custom stuff on top. And it's really good resource to have, but you can't really change anything they have in their contracts. So that's kind of where this issue stems from. So this one's describing the flow address. The flow address receives a 0.15% royalty for every NFT sale on a marketplace. So we just acknowledge this one as well. So this is something that's not fixed because it's not really an issue. It's part of the disclosure. It's in the contract white paper / contract guide. It's also disclosed here that yes, this address exists and it does receive these royalty payments. What it intends to do with them is not disclosed.
And just bringing it back to that, from what I understand, that's those royalty figures. That's something you have to put in if you want to let it be able to go on some of these NFT marketplaces, because they require some sort of royalty figure. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it depends on the marketplace. Some of them will just error out if there is no royalty figures. Like OpenSea would not. Variable does. Variable, you have to support the royalty interface. So you have to disclose something. It's a standard thing, unfortunately. It's such a weird thing too, because it's not standard for ERC 721, but it's standard for a lot of marketplaces, just because everybody does it, right?
Mm,
So, um, so it's partially to be compatible with all marketplaces. You have to expose the royalty interface somehow
mm,
to be on 100% of them, and
mm.
then there's additionally, like, I didn't want this kind of fee, like that this flow address is going to charge. I feel like it needed to be reasonable, and I thought 0.15% was relatively safe.
Yep. And just also like it doesn't necessarily mean like there's a lot of marketplaces in the works now. People are, starting to build their own NFT marketplaces for Pulse Chain. And it could be the case, like a lot of these marketplaces are built for these, JPEGs, which is like selling art. But this is going to be a financial NFT. So it's completely different. And especially if some of these go for really high prices, like a lot of people aren't going to want to charge a royalty fee. And I think that as marketplaces get more competitive, that you'll be able to put 0% in for a royalty fee, and they'll just take their sales commission cut. Um, and even that, I think, will get more competitive as more of them pop up. Is that your feeling as well?
I don't know what'll happen. I'd like to see financial NFT marketplaces kind of spring up with a better fee structure. Right now the going norm's about 2.5%, somewhere in there. I'd really like to see something like 0.5%, but maybe this marketplace doesn't show images, so it's not useful for pictures. So it's going to depend on what direction the market overall wants to go, but that's something I would like to see.
Yeah, and obviously that's going to evolve over time. And if you do have lots of marketplaces, they will be competing for, especially these financial NFTs, if it becomes a big market. Like like I know that USCG Vet has talked about Hedron being kind of like a bond. And if this becomes a kind of bond market in the future, you would think that it could even get as low as, 0.3% or something like that, because they'll still be making so much money if the price of these stakes is really high.
Yeah, I think no matter what, it needs to be 1% or lower. 1% is kind of like the standard in the fiat world for bonds. So, I think that or lower should be the direction it ultimately
Mm.
goes for these kind of NFTs. But it's gonna probably take someone to build a system that is more designed for them, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. And just if you are building a marketplace and you're watching this, like the first mover advantage on something like this could be absolutely huge. If you become the place for financial NFTs to be traded, um, like that's a massive market, 5 years into the future. If you can capture that market and be known as the people who are really safe and secure, and that's where everyone goes to check out the price of these NFTs. I think that's a massive opportunity for anyone building a marketplace.
Yeah, I agree. Um, so I'm gonna go move on to the next one. So next
Yep.
next thing in the audit is this check effect interaction pattern. This is a relatively minor thing. This actually doesn't matter anymore because this code was removed from the contract entirely. Um, when Hedron was first conceived, the idea was that you would deposit hex into the contract and then stake from there because it's lower gas to do it that way. Um, because you could just make one large deposit and then go through and divvy that into smaller sets of stakes. That really confused people when we were running through testnet. They didn't kind of understand the concept of it. So I scrapped that entirely and just made it so that if you want to make an encapsulated stake in Hedron, you just click the button, create stake. You'll have to do an approval. You kind of get the option in the app. You can do a max approval, so you never have to do it again, which is the most gas efficient way. Um, But there'll be people who aren't comfortable with that and they don't want a max approval. So otherwise, you can just type in what you want your approval to be and do it that way. Either one works.
And just to reiterate, that to create a hex stake through the Hedron contract is the only function that requires an approval. Everything else is read only.
Yep. So this was more about that, about how like the Hedron contract would store the balance and stuff like that. And it didn't follow this check effects interactions pattern, which is kind of like a standard way. It's like, hey, you do your checks first, then you change the stuff in your contract, then you actually move the tokens, right? So there was a misordering there. It's not really a huge security issue. It's just there's a possibility it could be a security issue in some really weird edge cases. But either way, this was fixed and then removed from the contract entirely. So this is an example of an issue where auditors are a little bit unsure of what your code does. So this one we don't have like a validation to check if the current hex day is more than 2, because it's always going to be more than 2. You know, we're assuming that the hex day is always greater than 2 in our code, right? And they're confused. They're saying, well, what if it's 0? Your code breaks. And it's, well, the day can't be 0 because the hex code is already deployed, and the day in hex only increases over time.
Oh, okay. That's just calling the hex, right?
Yeah, it's because Hedron's got to keep track of what hex day it is in order for it to do all of its math.
God, it's pretty surprising an audit company would not realize that. That's
I mean, they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place, right? Because they're an auditing company, so if they make a mistake like that in the report, they leave it in there, even if it's arguably maybe it looks bad, but like their job is to put everything they find in the report, whether it's valid or not, and they just mark it resolved if it was like an error on their end, as far as understanding goes. So HHCO2, pretty minor one. So this talks about how the bonuses for when you're minting are paid out to you and to the source address. And originally, the day minted total was not updated. And that's a piece of data used to show the graph on the main web page. So it's not really critical. It's just more informational than anything. But we ended up just making the change to also show that in the graph. So that one's marked resolved. Dangerous use of burns. This is my favorite one. So this is one we did not fix, and there's a really, really good reason. But they're basically viewing a burn, so a burn function, is worse than a burn from. This one. Oh, let me highlight it. There it goes. So burn from is a function. They both do the same thing. They both burn tokens. But burn from requires an approval first. So every time you use burn from, you need to approve the burn, then actually do the burn. And that's 2 different gas fees to do that. So if you're making a stake, or not making a stake, if you're making a payment, or doing a liquidation, or anything that in the contract that involves burning, you would, in their eyes, it would be better to require 2 transactions to do it. And I think it's important to note that the Hex contract also burns your tokens when you stake. It destroys them. And it doesn't make you do a burn from, because it's stupid to make people have to do 2 transactions. So we ultimately responded and said, we're not going to fix this. None of our users want to have to pay double gas in order to make a payment or do a liquidation. And like, this really is only a risk if you can control how much is being burnt, right? Because if you have a burn from and you can type in the amount that you want to burn and you're wrong, well, then you can if you don't have approvals, you could accidentally burn too much, right? But in Hedron, you don't get control of that. It tells you what it's going to burn in advance. It's already known. So So we ultimately opted not to do this.
Yeah, it's funny. That sounds to me like it would be more of an issue if it was burned from, because you could have users stuffing up in some way. Whereas this kind of just like, well, first of all, it's less gas, but then it's also the user can't stuff it up.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really stuff it up with burn from. You just have to do 2 transactions every time, which is annoying.
Oh, right. Okay. If you get the first one wrong, then you do something else, or
Yeah, like you either approve or you don't. So, yeah, like, I guess if you made the approve too small, then you would have to approve a third time. That'd be a
right,
little weird, but
right. Oh, okay. So you can approve too much, and then it'll just burn the right amount anyway. So
yeah,
it's just basically an extra thing. And it's so weird that they called that a major issue. Like, why would they call that a major issue?
it's from what they've told me, literally just because it's burn, right? Just because
Ah,
it's this
right,
function, because it doesn't need an approve.
right.
It says, and it says right here, which allows the contract to burn tokens without approval. And it's like, yes, if you call the payment function, it's gonna burn your tokens.
Mm-hmm.
So, assuming you can, like, if you don't have a loan, there's no payment to make, so you can't call that function. It's kind of this is kind of one of the stupid things about this audit, in my opinion. I don't think this should be here, but I was not able to change their minds. So this is the second major one. These are the only 2 major ones that exist
Mm-hmm.
that were not fixed. So this is the second one that was not fixed. And this is basically them complaining about the Hedron source address, saying that it's going to get a lot of tokens, and they mark it major because they want everyone to know that, hey, this address is going to get a lot of tokens.
Yeah, and just for people who don't know, the source address is kind of similar to the OA address in the Hex contract, in that it gets copies of bonuses, and yeah, like, I mean, how much can you speak about the purpose of the source address?
Not a lot. I don't know who owns it, and I don't know what they're going to do with all those tokens.
Okay. And can you talk about the design, like in terms of design, having like, well, can you talk about the OA address, and maybe we can infer?
Like what the OA address has done in Hex?
Yeah, just what the design intention of having something like the OA address in Hex is.
Well, so the OA address in Hex does a couple of things, right? So the OA, number one, it holds a lot of tokens, has a lot of supply, ultimately. And that has a couple of interesting effects. One is that it kind of helps inflate the market cap, right? Like, the market cap of Hex is not real. We kind of all know that. It's a dumb number anyways. But, by having this large supply that's more or less not moved, then you just end up with an inflated market cap. So that's one interesting effect of it. The OA, it's hard to track everything the OA has done because it's broken itself down to many wallets, but I believe it has provided liquidity in times of need, so it's been useful for that. It's really just been a benevolent actor within Hex and trying to do things that ensure that that Hex continues to grow. So I guess if you want to infer what the source address may do from what the OA does, maybe that's logical.
Okay, kind of like a protector
Yeah.
with a little bit of power, or a lot of power, but how they wield that is,
Well,
it's not direct.
it's like Richard says, right? You have, it's like, when was the best time to buy Bitcoin? When Satoshi had all the coins. When's the best time to buy Hex? When Richard has all the coins. Maybe the same will hold true for, or I guess I should say, when the OA holds all the coins. Conflating founders and OA, it's a bad deal. But you get the idea. The idea is saying maybe the best time to buy Hedrons when the SA has all the coins. I don't know. So.
Yeah,
It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think there was some. Let's talk about that another time. That's cool.
Okay.
Let's keep going. Yeah.
So HHCO5, the not updated launch bonus. So they don't understand the launch bonus. They ultimately marked it resolved. This took a lot of drilling down into them. But the launch bonus, it's kind of this thing where like you have to take your stake and you have to mint or claim your choice to get it, right? So if you have an existing stake or you make new stakes around the time of the launch bonus inside of uh, Hedron, or not inside of regular Hex, right? So these are native stakes. Um, you're not going to just automatically get your launch bonus. You have to go to the Hedron contract and mint or claim. But if you make an encapsulated stake in Hedron, well, they automatically get the bonus because you made it in Hedron. Hedron already knows it exists. So they're more or less complaining about the duality of that, that if a native stake does this, that they don't automatically just get that for creating a stake. Versus like an encapsulated stake, the HSI does automatically get it. So I had to sit there and explain to them that like there's no way for Hedron to know if somebody goes into the Hex contract and creates a stake. Like, you know, it can only know what happens within its own realm. So this took some explaining on how that interaction works, but ultimately got this one resolved. This one was a big pain point too, because this one was on here for a long time before I got it resolved. So this is the first inflation bug. So there were 2 inflation bugs put into the GitHub to prevent people from copying the code base before I launched it, because the code's been public since December, and you know I can make it unlicensed and all rights reserved and all that stuff. But if there is, you know, an unsavory actor, they could just copy it and deploy and like front run me. So I put 2 inflation bugs in the contract and told people about it in Telegram, like, hey, if you find it, you get a cookie. No one ever found them, but Certic found them, so I guess that's good, right?
That's a good sign.
Yeah.
You're from your audit company.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a test, right? So
Yeah.
the first one was that we didn't update the minted days on HSIs. So if you make an HSI with this bug in place, it would just let you keep pressing mint as many times as you wanted, and it would just keep printing coins.
Yeah.
You can see where it says we fixed it before even the preliminary report came out, because once they found it and I told them what it was, they'd kind of marked it this way so that it looked like we were on it, because ultimately they were put in there on purpose. So this is a bug they found. So we've been through all of these bugs so far, and this is the first real bug they found. And it's a good one. It's super, super subtle, but it's an error in the way that payoff premiums were calculated. So, and this would also have applied to liquidations too, because they use the same code to figure out how much is paid. So the payoff function should only charge you premiums up to the current day, right? And it did that. The problem was it calculated the premium against all remaining days in the stake at once, instead of just like what the outstanding payment window was. So it scaled the premium so that it was the right amount, but then it applied it to too many days. So it worked fine if you paid it off super early, but if you let it go out for like 2 or 3 years and then try to do a payoff, the payoff would actually cost more than you making all the payments. So that you couldn't even really see this in Testnet because the numbers looked correct. But they did ultimately find this, and so this is the first bug they found, and obviously you fixed it. But I'm really glad they found that one, because you wouldn't have known that one for 2 or 3 years.
Oh, that's great. I mean, that's kind of worth it in itself then for the audit, hey?
Oh yeah, that's worth 40 grand, because it's like it's such a subtle thing. It's literally just like some parentheses were in the wrong place.
Wow. Interesting. Wow, it can be that subtle, hey? Yeah.
So, you know, it can look great when you're writing the code and you're like, yeah, this looks perfect. And then if your parentheses are in the wrong place, the math gets done in the wrong order, and then you're wrong. So I got to read this one. What's this one? Oh, this is another one. This is one we actually found before they did, but this is one we found in Testnet v1. So if you remember, we had Testnet v1 that we let everyone play with, looked for issues, fixed them, then did Testnet v2. So this is one of those issues we found in Testnet v1. If you pass the final due day, like by it too far, the loan function would end up charging you too high. Like if you're on your like last payment, right? Like this was a really weird case where like you're on your last payment, you let it go late, so you don't make it within, like you don't let it go to 90 days and get liquidated, but you let it go beyond 60. Well, if you let it go beyond 60, it would actually start charging you a little more. So that was one we took care of. This is inflation bug 2, where we had set this to 0, where it should be served days. So this is one of the intentional ones.
Yeah.
And so this is something they found. It's informational. We never need to update the date that the liquidation starts. So like there was a spot in the code where we were like resetting the date to the same date that it already was. So we just removed that. Just a gas efficiency thing. And this is the last one. The purpose of proof of benevolence. So proof of benevolence is a function in the contract that's not exposed in the user interface. And all it does is burn tokens. So you call it, you give it an amount, burns the tokens from your wallet. So I don't know why anyone would ever want to call this. Seems like a function no one would want to call. It would burn your own bags, and it can only burn your bags. Whoever calls the function can't burn random people's bags. But they want to know why.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, why does this function exist? And I told them that. Sorry.
I mean, it's in the name, really, isn't it? But yeah.
maybe it's in the name. But I told them like it's for administrative use, or maybe like not really a whole lot of point to it, but it won't be exposed to the end users. You'll have to go to Etherscan, and they didn't really like that, so they didn't record my answer. But
so the only place, if you want to go use this, you have to do it through, you have to kind of be a bit more tech savvy, and you have to go through Etherscan to do it. It's not going to be something, obviously, that's just on the website that you can push.
Yeah, we're not making a button that removes tokens from your wallet. That's bad. So,
and I guess the SA could use that address.
It might. I don't know.
Yeah, and that could. Yeah, like I mean, people in the chats have been kind of thinking about the AMR bonus, the advanced to mint ratio bonus, when there's more Hedron being borrowed than minted, and that triggers a special bonus where on that for 24 hours, people get a ton more Hedron if they mint on that day, and I guess the SA could use that proof of benevolence to trigger that. I don't think Wales would use it to trigger it. Wales would probably use just borrowing, like they just borrow on stakes in order to try to trigger the AMR bonus, or to shift it up so that they can then mint and then pay off their borrow and then mint from that stake or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of possibilities, but I wouldn't have any expectations that the source address intends to use that,
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't. Yeah. And so so why did you put the proof of benevolence in there?
It's undisclosed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. If you want to burn your tokens, it's there. Maybe you do. I don't know. Like maybe you're such a big whale that you don't care about your tokens and you just want to get rid of some and trigger AMR. Seems unlikely, but it exists. You can use it if you want. It does require an approve. So like that's one that we do effectively require burn from for. So
they make sure they know what they're doing. Right.
Yeah, it'll be a 2-step deal, but
Right. Interesting. Okay, so having said all of that, you went through all of this process. You wanted to launch at the end of January. The audit wasn't coming out in time enough for people to kind of look over it. And then also you started having suggestions from the audience, from the chats about you could add this, and some of those suggestions were actually fantastic, and you decided to implement them and to make those changes to the contract, which I guess has added a little bit of work for the auditors, which perhaps is why they were a little bit later in doing all of that kind of stuff. And then you had to push it back because they weren't going to have it out in time. And then you got to this point where you've got the audit and it's all good and it's public. And maybe you could just talk about what's happened in the last when was it? Like a few days ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun one. So I'll start with some of the things. Like, not everyone knows like where Hedron kind of like where Testnet V1 was, right? And then suggestions that kind of came through from the community. One of them was to have a claim button instead of mint, in case you didn't, if you wanted to actually defer receiving tokens. So, so I did add those claim functions. HSI stakes didn't automatically claim their bonus when they're created. That was added as a community suggestion. Liquidations used to be just instant, like you just paid off their balance and it was yours. There were concerns in the community that would lead to bot issues. So we changed that into an auction system that extends by up to 5 minutes every time that a bid's placed within that little last, like if you wait till like the last second, timer resets 5 minutes. So anything done in that last 5 minute window is just throws the auction a little bit further. So I think that was it. I think those were really the only big ones. But yeah, so we did that, got all that done. Audit was good for all that code. Perfect. It's like, all right, we're ready to launch. So the contract is hard locked. It has a timer that doesn't allow you to do any transactions until that time, actually, like that block timestamp occurs. And that's set to February 26th UTC, like on day change, so midnight. So it's like, okay, let's go ahead and deploy these contracts. So I did that. Deployed contracts, got everything, forked the front end, testnet for mainnet, got all the stuff going, Uniswap interfaces. And then a developer in HexDev pings me, is like, have you heard of, I think it's ERC 1167 minimal proxy contracts? And I was like, no, I've not heard of that. So it turns out this guy works for an auditing company. I'm not going to dox him because I don't know if he wants to be doxed, but he works for an auditing company.
Well, actually, that actually is public. Like people could go into the HexDev chat and they could view this conversation between you and him.
Yeah, that's true. So is it Philippe? Philip? I think it's Felipe.
Hmm.
I'm going to mispronounce that, but I'm pretty sure it's Felipe over there in HexDev. Pretty sure it's how you
Yeah, and he actually went public about who he works for as well.
He works for QuantStamp.
Yeah.
So, and he was surprised Certic didn't suggest that, because that cuts HSI contract creation down by like almost 70-80%. So like doing HSIs, it's so simple to do, and this is the most annoying part about it, but it's so simple. It's like literally 15 lines of code that are inconsequential to the contract to change to make it do it this way. But how the contract was doing it before is when you made a hex stake, it would essentially create you an HSI contract of your own, throw the hex in there, and then create a stake. And then you have that hex stake encapsulated by the HSI contract. Then you can assign an NFT token to that contract and move it around. Or borrow against it, or whatever you're going to do. So it turns out that costs quite a bit on Ethereum, and probably around $200 to $300 in gas fees to make that contract. So, and that's probably like the biggest pain point of Hedron. So what Felipe suggested with this ERC 1167 stuff uses what's called a proxy contract. And this is like super cool in how this works, but it deploys like an implementation HSI. And that's a complicated word, but you deploy one HSI, just one, right? And then when you want to make a new HSI, you say, okay, I'm going to make this new HSI, and it's going to have some data space for its stake, right? But because every HSI uses the same code on the blockchain, instead of rewriting that code every time you make an HSI, you can just link essentially to the code of the master HSI, right? And so every contract still exists as far as like you interacting with it. They're all their unique entities. Like they all have their own stakes, their own owners. Like all that stuff stays the same. But like there's like functions like the actual code on how to create the stake or to end the stake or to call good accounting. Those pieces of code, because they're the same in every contract, they don't actually have to get redeployed. So OpenZeppelin has a library for this, and it was something when I was writing it, I just wasn't aware that this existed. And it turns out I'm not the first person to make this mistake, but there's lots of projects that have accidentally not done this. So I'm very thankful that that was brought up. That cuts the gas fees from $200 to $300 to make a encapsulated stake down to about 50, probably less, even like since gas fees have been going down a lot. So we may even see less than 50. It's going to be really, really cool. And I'm super excited for it. And I'm super thankful to Felipe for pointing that out. The downside is we'd already deployed the Hedron contract, right? So, but the good news is no one's used it and it's time locked. It's like, it has no admin key, so I can't kill it. It's going to exist forever on the blockchain, but I could just deploy a new one. So we came up with some new SA and FA addresses and deployed a second contract and then scrubbed all references to the old one. And we're like, okay, well, here's the new one with this one change that's going to literally make it so much better. So that's how it's going to be. It's a little annoying, but
Yeah, I think you said that it was famously Uniswap version 1 made that same mistake, and they changed it in Uniswap version 2.
there's a Uniswap version that made the mistake, and then they changed it later at some point to do a similar thing, very similar thing. They did it before, I believe, the standard had come out. It's like they were, they had kind of come up with the idea of doing this before there was an actual Ethereum standard to use for it. So their implementation's a little different, but yeah.
Okay, so you were in this position where you'd already deployed. You can't take it down. I mean, this probably proves it that you'll never be able to take down the Hedron contract. Like once it's up there, it's immutable, and literally immutable. And so you were in this kind of dilemma where you'd had everything set up and ready to go, and I think famously you put in the chat, do I eat the FUD or do I eat the gas fees?
That was the poll, right? Eat the FUD or eat the gas fees? Because like arguably people are gonna FUD this. There's no way they're not. It's like they're like, oh, you had to deploy a second one. Now there's 2 Hedrons on chain. It's like it doesn't matter because the user interface won't point to the old contract, and all the coin ranking sites won't point to the old contract, and Etherscan will have the old contract blacklisted with a warning telling people that this isn't supported and you probably shouldn't use it. So it's like, no one's going to use the old one. Everything will point to the new one, but it is an area where there'll be some FUD, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think the overwhelming sentiment in the chats was like, eat the FUD, eat the FUD. Yeah, I mean, we want lower gas fees. And I think I think one of the reasons for that was because people in the chats have been spending the last couple of months understanding Hedron and also talking to you and seeing your openness and seeing your responses to things. And I know for me that's built up an incredible amount of trust, and seeing that this audit process and that you know your project better than these auditors, and although they did find that one bug that you didn't see, that small bug about with the parentheses.
Mhm.
Like I've got a lot of confidence just from seeing your interactions, seeing your interviews, seeing your openness, and how you handle people's questions and stuff like that. And it's interesting because in this trustless world, it does come down to a certain extent to trust when you don't have that technical knowledge, and you have to read audits and trust that audit. You have to listen to the dev and hear what they say and make judgments on them. Um, and I suppose it'll just be time in the end. Like with the Hex contract, we've seen it's worked perfectly ever
Mhm.
since it was deployed. And now after 2 years, people have a hell of a lot more confidence in it. And so it'll be similar with Hedron. And for those people who are the slightly more risk takers, that first 100 days of launch with all of the bonuses they'll either be rewarded for that, or they'll probably be rewarded for that. And yeah, is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, how much can you do, right? I mean, it's audited, it's got no admin keys, it's entirely immutable. Like, it's immutable because I can't kill the first one. It's stuck there. It's like I've paid like basically a little over 40 grand for this audit out of my own pocket. I don't have venture capital money. I had to do that at 13 cents. Hex. That was like the most painful thing. That's a story. But that was the thing I'd do. I paid $2,000 in gas to deploy the first contract just to be like, oh well, no one's gonna use this. It's like, there's only so much I can do to make people want to trust me.
Yeah.
Only so much I could do. So if you just want to wait it out, that's fine. And if you don't trust it, it's also fine. There are people who do trust it. There are people who use it, and it'll find its own success. I have no question about that.
Have you and so have you been in contact with Certic about them updating with the audit with that new 15 lines of code?
Yeah, so I've sent it to them. They've looked at it. They've briefly told me in private that they're probably not going to change the audit at all. They don't see anything. There's no things to add. No functions have changed in the code. This is literally just a little bit of reorganizing of the same stuff that was already happening. So they'll likely just update the hashes. So like one thing you can see on the audit is like the SHA 256 hash of the contracts. They don't have those published yet because they were waiting on me to give them the links to it on Etherscan and stuff. So I just sent them the new ones. So you'll likely just see those get updated. And when that happens, you can compare it with the ones that are being publicized and find out if they're legitimate or not. But
fantastic! So essentially, the audit will stand, and
yeah,
and those hashes will work. Yeah. And do we know when those hashes are going up?
It's whenever they feel like doing it. So I hope it's soon. It'd be great if it's before launch, right? But
they've got to. I mean, surely they've got to do it before launch, no? Or
I would like it. I would like them to do it, but you can only push them so hard, man. And here's the thing, from my perspective, like all I care about, I don't even care about this audit from like the user's perspective. Like I realize users want to see it and it makes them feel better, and I understand that. I don't care about it all from that. I care about it from the fact that I know my code is doing what I believe it's doing, right? I don't want to put something on the blockchain that does something different from what I think it's going to do. So me seeing that audit the way it is tells me it's going to do everything exactly as I think it's going to do, and it's safe to put on the blockchain. So as long as I'm comfortable with that, I'll deploy it. Everyone else can figure that out later if they want. Everyone's kind of got their own time horizon on when they're comfortable with these things. But as long as I know it's safe, then I'm comfortable, putting it out there. So
yeah, and we've had a number of dev type people looking through the audits, through the contract as well. USCG vet famously, went put his face out to it and called it. A lot of devs won't necessarily do that. I guess in a way, Philippe has kind of done that as well, because if he found that and then he didn't find anything else, that's
Yeah, I mean, if you found anything else, he hasn't told me, but he told me probably the biggest deal that you could have. So I assume if there was more, he would have brought that up too.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, what this means for users is that instead of paying $300 to create a hex stake through the Hedron contract, we're now going to probably pay around $50 or $60 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is super bullish for Hedron, super bullish for Hex. Yeah, I think it's it was treated as really, really good news by most of the community.
Yeah, this is a really good point, Tech Dolphin. Yeah, the Git commits are in the audit, so you can actually go to the GitHub, which is public. It's in the Telegram and on the website, but yeah, you can go there and check the Git commits that happened after that. If you know how Git works, it's quite easy, and then see what's actually been changed.
And I just see OG43 in there, who we should do a little shout out to, and he was the person who, or I think was there two people who came up with the claim idea, or was it just OG43?
It's pretty much him. I think he brought it up, and then everyone else wanted it at the same time.
Yeah. So OG43's got that, and he's just asking about NFT. We actually did talk about NFT trading a bit before.
It's something I want to exist. I want an NFT trading platform for like financial tool style NFTs with a 1% or lower fee. Well, I hope someone builds it. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? No expectations from me, right? But I do want it to exist. So take that for whatever you guys want to take it for.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. We've gone over the audit then, and so yeah, if there's any questions from the chat, or if there is anybody who wants to jump on this historic live, we've put it in the Hedron mods channel. Do you want to put it anywhere else, or should we just?
I blasted Twitter pretty hard. I put it over Hedron. Oh, maybe I'll go put it in. No, I put it in Discord too. So. Yeah.
In Discord. So yeah, if there is anybody else who'd like to come on and be part of this moment, you're welcome to. Yeah. And if I've kind of been keeping half an eye on the chats, but I haven't seen any. Let's maybe talk about the stake wrap claim. Yeah.
Okay. I think Mintra is going to be a great option for Pulse Chain. I think they're going to have the best fee structure, at least of what I know currently. So I think when Pulse Chain it's going to depend when Mintra comes out, of course, right? But when Pulse Chain launches, assuming Mintra's kind of early to the game, I think they will probably be the best option as of current. But I have yet to see. I know there are a couple other marketplaces coming out on Pulse, and I've yet to really see what they're going to do.
Actually, one thing that I've asked you before, and I think you maybe explained it to OG43 a little bit more, was how these NFT platforms are completely trustless in terms of exchanging, putting your NFT up there and getting whatever payment for it.
Yeah, so they all do it a little differently, but really there is... The biggest one's OpenSea, of course, right? So the thing with OpenSea is that their backend is entirely on the blockchain. Like how they're actually moving asset around is using a system called Wyvern. And Wyvern's really cool in that it uses signed messages to basically finalize transactions. So you say, I want to sell this NFT for 500 ETH. Some other guy says, I want to buy that NFT for 500 ETH, right? You guys both sign messages, and Wyvern can essentially combine those signed messages together to create a completable transaction. So what's beautiful about this, at least from OpenSea's point of view, is that their front end can just record these signed messages and then put them together when they happen and go send that to the blockchain. So it's trustless, but the negotiation can happen off chain and still be trustless. So you have less overall fees doing it this way. Now OpenSea's been hacked, and this has been partly user error, partly some oversight by OpenSea. But one of the big issues is if you offer an NFT for sale, right? So you sign a message saying, "Hey, I want to sell this for 10 ETH," and then you delist it, right? But you don't revoke that from the blockchain. You just delist it from OpenSea's website. Well, now that still exists on the blockchain. Someone can still make the other half of that transaction, put them together, and make the trade go through. So what you were seeing happening before with OpenSea was people were listing things for sale and then delisting them. Or they would buy them and then not pull them out of the OpenSea proxy contract, which is what's used to actually move the asset, right? So because those were not removed from, they were left in OpenSea essentially, or you listed it but then did not like actually revoke that from chain, either one of those, if you didn't actually finish out the transaction, then it was, the option was for someone to go back in and finish it off for you at a price that you probably don't like. So it's, I think that's a little bit oversight on OpenSea's part. Like, they allowed people to do this. They allowed people to not be secure, and they probably should have forced people to revoke those things from chain in order to delist them. But regardless, so I believe they've actually fixed that one, and now they're being attacked by some phishing thing. So I don't actually view OpenSea as bad. I think their system is actually pretty good. I just think they're, like, they're out here trying to make gas as cheap as possible for everybody, and that opens some security holes. And they're out.
So revoking costs gas, does it?
Yeah, which is why people didn't do it. So like right now, like what people are doing on Twitter, or what I see them doing on Twitter, is they're actually buying the NFT and then sending it to a different address, because sending the NFT to a new blank address is cheaper than revoking. So it's like, and I guess it works, right? Because like, even if someone matches the other side of the proxy contract with the trade, there's no NFT in there anymore. So
yeah, they just wasted that money. Yeah.
So there's some interesting things, but really people are just trying to avoid gas and being less secure because of it. Rarible is the other big one, and they have their own DEX system. It's more akin to Uniswap. There's no proxy contracts. They're just using approves to do it. So theirs is probably better. More of it happens on chain. The negotiation happens on chain. Everything's on chain. Okay. Rarible is also more expensive to use because of it. So.
Okay, so or maybe a Rarible fork on Pulse chain might be the way to go.
Yeah, or like I'm fine with OpenSea fork if they have a better front end. So I think I think the Wyvern engine underneath OpenSea is the better DEX for this stuff, but I think you need a front end that's more designed for security.
Fair call, yeah. And so what about for people who have Staker app stakes? You've written a tutorial for that. Tell people where they find that. And
so a community member wrote it, but it's in the Telegram group. If you want to join it, it's t.me/Hedron Crypto. You go there, and there's a guide in the pin messages, PDF of all the steps you need to do to claim or mint your Hedron, or interact with Hedron however you want from your Staker app wallet. It is a little complex. It's got some steps, and it will probably scare some people away. So I do put on there that, do it at your own risk. There's no inherent risk with doing what the guide says, but there is inherent risk if you incorrectly doing something. So just be vigilant. We're providing that on good faith, but until Staker app wants to give us an easier option to do this, then I can't tell people, hey, go open your Staker app, take your seeds out, go put it in MetaMask, go to Gnosis Safe, connect them together, and do all this stuff. It's complicated and there's a lot of room for error. So it's at your own risk, but the information is there if you want to do it.
Okay, and so if somebody does want to do it and they're not sort of so savvy in these kind of things, you just say, like, just what kind of precautions would you suggest someone take? Just follow every instruction to the letter. Is that it?
I would do that. I would go buy a ledger or a Trezor and put your or Staker app seeds on that. Don't put them directly in MetaMask. Don't save them on your computer. Don't save them to iCloud. However you have them backed up now, hopefully it is offline, cold, no one can access it. But when you take those seed words and put them in something to use with MetaMask, I suggest a ledger or a Trezor. Some kind of well-tested hardware wallet that you didn't buy on Amazon, that you went directly to the manufacturer and purchased. That's the best idea. Now, some people will put it in MetaMask, and when you're done, if you're not going to interact with Hedron, you can just delete MetaMask. Right. So you can do that. That's slightly less secure, but works out. But other than that, the guide's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to connect, somehow get your seeds into MetaMask, whether it be directly or through a hardware wallet, and you're going to put your Staker address in a Gnosis Safe, connect MetaMask and Gnosis Safe together, and then Gnosis Safe will allow you to use an app they have called Wallet Connect to connect to the Hedron website, and then you could do everything from normal as you normally would. So
awesome. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think in Richard's last stream, I think it was on BitBoy, and they asked him about security, and he actually prefers no hardware wallet and just to use software, and I guess just to put your keys in every time.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, if you're knowledgeable and you know how this works, you can keep your keys safe. You can keep your seeds safe in MetaMask, right? And maybe you remove them every time you're done doing something and re-add them later. It's pretty easy to do, especially if you have them in a format that's like, let's say, like if you had them in an encrypted format that you could easily figure out and then put in MetaMask, great. If you're knowledgeable on how this stuff works, you know how to protect your seed phrase. But I think if you're not knowledgeable, and I think a lot of people who use Staker app as a daily driver are probably people who are doing it because it's easy and you don't have to know as many things to use it. So, from that perspective, I think it's better that they do have a hardware wallet, because it removes the ability for them to go into MetaMask and hit show me my seed words and then put it in Telegram to some guy pretending to be me, pretending to be Richard Hart or anybody, you can't do it. They would have to go find the piece of paper and maybe when they find the piece of paper and it says right up top, don't share this with anybody. It's, super, maybe they'll think when they have that. So I like the hardware wallet for those people.
Right. Yeah, and when we talk about encryption methods, it's like when you say that, it's not necessarily some sort of digital encryption. It could be as simple as, you're adding 4 words from the list onto that, into those seeds, and only you know which of the 4 words that you have to not use.
Yeah, right. Like you could store, if you do the correct things, you can store a seed securely in plain text on your computer, because you need information that's in your head in order to decipher it into a meaningful address. But these are advanced things that a lot of people aren't doing, and the amount of people that get hacked because they screenshotted Staker app when it showed them their seed phrase, and then it went into their iCloud on their iPhone, and then their iCloud password is their pet's name and their birthday. When these things all combine, and this is how people get hacked. So You know?
Well, actually, I think the main way people get it's hacked. They're not even really hacked. People are just literally getting tricked. And they're getting
probably
tricked
the
into
biggest
just
one.
giving away. That's 99.9% from what I've seen.
Yeah, so you just someone saying, "Hey, and I'm people pretending to be MetaMask support," right? Like it's such a shame. I can't even say the word MetaMask on Twitter. Like it's ridiculous. You say MetaMask on Twitter, and you'll
And the
get
bots just
50 bots with links to fake MetaMask support, and it's kind of atrocious.
Yeah, Mickey says it's steganography. That's having encryption out in plain sight.
Yeah.
Okay, so only you know what the special method is, and then you can just literally even, I mean, depends how audacious you want to get. But if you've got a good encryption method in your head, you can literally have it. You could email it to yourself. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could do something like that, and it would be very difficult if it's in your head and nobody else knows. And that's also a way that you can transmit it to, like if something happens to me and you want to give it to your loved ones, you want to have them have an easy way of doing that. And so you can get really creative with that. It's not about knowing computers necessarily. It's just knowing how to, it's just knowing steganography, and how you do that. The more creative you are with that only you know, or your loved ones know, that's the kind of safer it is. Hey.
Yeah. That's a super valuable thing, right? Because it's like, God forbid anything bad happen to anybody, but if someone got a hold of your paper backup or your steel backup or platinum or whatever you backed up your seeds on, like, that could be a big risk. So having those keys not be directly useful because of some hidden information in your head is very valuable and pretty easy to do. So
Cool. Okay, so Tech Dolphin asks, what needs to happen for you to consider Hedron a success?
I think it's already a success. I mean, I've watched it be played on Testnet. Like, there's a special moment when you're watching people like, because in the Testnet, I had triggered liquidations at 3 days. People could actually play with it quickly, and like, there's a special moment, and you know what? I'll show you the special moment. Right? Well, let's look at Testnet. I've got a test wallet. Yeah. All right. Give me a second.
One thing I really thought was interesting was, on Testnet was, well, first of all, it was just the auctions and chucking it up an extra 5 minutes. But then when I think I heard Gerardo talk about how he tried to dump the market, the Hedron market, like to see how low he could get the price, and I was just, that's an interesting behavior, like, because that shows something. That shows like the naughtiness of, like for someone to want to do something, and that's, because it's on testnet, it has no repercussions, so you can do what you really want to do. And it's almost kind of like, are we having a little view into mass human psychology? Like people are going to want to.
A little, yeah. It's like, there's no risk to your bag, right? Because your bag is already nothing. It's just fun.
Yeah.
So you get to do all the things that you wish you could do.
Yeah. And how much does that play out in people's kind of like inner psychology or something over time across a great number of people?
Yeah, I don't know. But it's been fun to watch. There's been a lot of use of testnet, and it's been great. So here we have some stakes. This is what it's going to look like on launch. There'll be more stuff here if you have more than 3 stakes, but we can go through it. So I can see that these 2 stakes here, right? These are native stakes. These are stakes that were made on like go.hex.com. So they're native. They can only mint how many B shares it has, how many 4 out of 365 days served, and then the testnet's been going for a while, so it only has an 8x bonus multiplier. But you'll see I have the option to claim or mint. And you can see these do basically the same thing. So if I hit claim, this comes up. I'll just confirm that.
Oh, there's a little kind of MetaMask confirmation coming up. We just can't see it on your screen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
because it doesn't show
yeah.
the.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, this
That's
is
cool.
stress anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, I click confirm when MetaMask asked me that. You'll see now it just says I can mint, right? Because I claimed this 10x, this 8x bonus, right? So now this 8x bonus will never decrease. This stake will always have an 8x bonus because I hit claim. Or I could just do mint. They both do the same thing. The difference is mint's going to actually give me this 21,000 Hedron, right? Or claim doesn't. Claim lets me wait and mint it later. So that's really the difference between claim and mint. It's relatively simple. Testnet's going a little slow today.
Yeah.
Right.
And the claim will become superfluous after the first 100 days as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. After 100 days, there's no more claim. It's like that's all you can do right there with your native stakes that you have. You can mint or claim, pick which way you're going to go. So this one here you can see is instanced. This means it's in an HSI wrapper, right? And I get a whole lot more options with this. It's got to scroll down. So I can mint this. I can mint this 53,000 Hedron. I can borrow. I can tokenize. A lot of cool stuff. So let's borrow. So I'm going to acknowledge all the risks. And I can see that my premium rate's 1.52%, which is basically the same thing as interest if you're coming from it. From like normal financial realm, it's just because it's an advance, it's a premium. I know what my payments, like I'm gonna have to pay 44,000 Hedron plus 60 or 672.9, and then this here is like my total payment, and that'll never change. That's fixed for the life of what I'm borrowing. The only exception might be the last payment, because the last payment might have less than 30 days. But I can just borrow this. I love Testnet.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's so quick as well. Like,
yeah, Pulse is gonna be so fast.
mm.
But now I have options like I can make a payment. You know, that's the same amount I was told it would be, and I know which payment it is. And you know, like if I make this payment right now, so it says my payment's due in 30 days, and if I don't make it in 90, it's gonna be liquidated. Well, I can make one early. And you can just push this out like as many days in the future as you want, which is always fun. So now if I click payment again, now my liquidation date's 120 days, and I don't have to make one for 60. So yeah, you can push those out as far as you want it to go. So liquidations are fun. So I can see, here's a stake, or two stakes. Oh wow, it's a couple. It's because we just crossed UTC, didn't we? So now there's a bunch. So these are all the stakes right now on Testnet that I can choose to liquidate. So yeah.
Yeah, let's liquidate one.
Yeah, let's liquidate one. I gotta see how much Hedron I have. Oh, hold on. Let me add this to add the token to my MetaMask. All right.
That's a good one. That's what I didn't realize. There's that button that just automatically adds Hedron to your MetaMask. Yeah.
I think it's like 53 million, so I can find one of these. So there's these two auctions going on right now. I won't worry about those. We'll what's my start? I want a cheap starting bid. 76,000 seems good, so we'll go with this one. So I could choose to go to counting it here if I wanted to, if it was gonna like mature in the middle of the liquidation, but I'm not gonna do that. Can I not? I thought I had enough. That stake was pretty small.
You need to borrow from one of your other stakes.
Well, those are. Yeah, that might be enough. Let me see if there's a cheaper one. It's got to be a super small one in here. Well, let's mint this one.
And for those who don't know, it goes into a 24-hour auction. And at the end of the auction, if someone makes a bid within, what is it? So the 24 hours ends, and then, or if within the last 5 minutes, if there's been a bid, then it extends it by 5 minutes.
Yeah, if there's been a bid within the last 5 minutes.
It extends it by 5 minutes. And then if someone makes another bid, it goes 5 minutes. And then it can keep going as people upbid each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was thinking a lot about like what's going to happen with this bidding. And because Hedron is going to be so cheap probably at the start, you would imagine, like I think these things are going to go for a ton of Hedron. And of course, all of that Hedron is burnt, because if somebody has a whole lot of Hedron, they want to convert, like, why wouldn't you want to get a stake with it, you know, a hex stake with it?
Yeah.
And, you know, you can automatically borrow against it if you really wanted to, or you could just wait and mint. And if, especially if it has a bonus attached to it, like these, they're going to go for a ton of Hedron, because if you just wanted to get rid of your Hedron or swap it for something, you're not going to have the liquidity there if you're a huge whale. And so you may as well just spend it on buying a hex stake. So
Yeah.
at the start, I can see these liquidations going for a huge amount. And I know that there's been a bit of talk of whales putting up, you know, purposely defaulting to well, basically get Hedron burnt.
Yeah, it will just pump the market more or less, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it'll add to that stickiness and everything. Yeah.
So I forgot something. So that wasn't enough for me to do it either. But I have hex on this, or testnet hex. So let's just like.
Oh, you're gonna make a stake and then borrow from it.
Yeah. So I'll just make a new
Yeah.
stake. For.
Do you think people will pretty much only make Quattro Cincos with this?
I don't know. I think if you're not gonna sell the stake, like if your goal is to play the borrow and minting game, probably yeah. There probably is a little reason to not make one. If you're wanting to sell the stake, all right, that should be enough. That's 81 million Hedron. So we'll borrow this. That's probably one of the most powerful things. Just make a stake and then just immediately borrow it.
Yeah.
Granted, yeah, you're taking some risk. So, know what you're doing before you click the borrow button. But it's just fun to see.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing is you have options. Like you can always mint from another one to pay back that borrow. You could pay it back in the installments, or you could just pay it back all at once. Or if you could always sell one as an NFT. Swap it for Hedron and then pay back that way, or sell some of it and just to get some head. I mean, there's going to be so many options.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's find. That's like a cool one, because you'll be able to mint some stuff on this. This one's 19 days. Let's do this one. Well, I guess I can't. I probably can't own it right now anyway. But anyway, so
yeah, it'll take a while to. Are there any in auctions that are close to coming up, or?
I'll do both. Yeah. I mean, that one stake I made was like 80 million, so I've got a little bit of test
play money. Yeah.
Wait on the event.
One person asked, I wanted to remember, like, what will be the total cost of a 555 start and end fee?
So the start fee doesn't change at all. Like from an HSI for 1 day or an HSI for 15 years, it's going to be the same. So you're going to be looking at around like $50-ish fee to start. The end stake is insignificantly more than, because you actually get some credits, because when you end a stake, you're actually destroying the smart contract that's holding it. So the Ethereum chain will give you some credits. They used to give you a lot more credits, but they've reduced the amount of credits they give you. but it's enough to basically make end stake the same cost as a normal stake. And HSI start is like, instead of $20 or $30, it's like $50 now. But so the cost is marginal. It's probably about the same either way. But anyway, so you can see that one I bid on, or I started the liquidation, is now in an auction for 24 hours. We have these other ones. So like the green means I'm currently the high bidder. I can actually come in here and bid on this one. So it's 3 million. Let's do 4 million.
Yeah, I mean, everything on ETH is going to cost, cost gas. To make these bids is going to cost gas on ETH.
Yeah.
To borrow, to do anything on ETH is going to cost. That's just, something we have to take into account. And, obviously on Pulse, it's kind of a really insignificant cost to all of this stuff.
Yeah, so you can see someone outbid me on this one, so it turned red. But
it's probably Nomad. Someone's like,
I'm gonna let this sit here because like you can just watch this happen in real time. Like even if you're not bidding, someone can just come in on Testnet and outbid that. Nope, there it is. Now it's 5 million. This is like the most fun part, is just to sit here and watch the auctions happen, right? In real time. So like, this all happens on chain. Like that's the beautiful part. Like it's just asking the blockchain, hey, you got any bid events? And then it runs through them and updates what you're seeing. So yeah, so that's cool. Obviously, I could sit here and liquidate a bunch more and throw them in auctions. We could do a tokenized.
Oh yeah, let's send it somewhere else.
I could probably pay this one off. Yeah. That one was so big. So I'm going to pay off that loan. The first one I did.
Yeah, I'm really hoping we have some great stats coming out. I know there's one person working on having how many people are claiming, how many people are how many addresses rather are claiming, how many addresses are minting, and stuff like that. I think that'll be really sticky as well. There's going to be like a whole ton of stats. Like I saw a couple of Hedronians in the chat yesterday working on their Excel sheets, and Nomad and Gifford, and all sorts of people are starting to come up with all sorts of strategies and
yeah, there's all sorts of, like, the amount of strategies people are devising in chat is just awesome to see. And then, there's got to be people devising strategies not in chat, right? Like their own little secret. I'm going to tell everybody this part, but I'm going to leave this piece out, right? Because everyone does that to a degree. So,
yeah, right.
Like if there's that much happening in chat, imagine what's happening in people's heads, like that they aren't sharing. Like there's going to be so many games to be played. Yeah.
It was funny when I first discovered Hex. I was just like, oh, well, he's done. He's solved it. That's it. What's it? What are all these people going to talk about now? And I was just so like, I mean, it's just amazing how much has come, and like, people need to talk about stuff. People want to play in this space and stuff like that. And you've come and developed this, and this is just a whole nother game on top of Hex, and everything about it is just going to pump Hex, because there's just no reason for us to sell our stakes now. We'll be able to get Hedron out of them and just wait for them to increase in value, and then it's going to drive the price of Hex up, so you're going to want to sell it even less, and it's just going to be this kind of.
It's going to be wild. Like I did want to show this part. It's like I just paid this one off, right? Admittedly, with borrowed funds from the other one, so yeah, not a very
leveraging up.
I guess that's leveraging a little, right? But so now I can mint again, right? Like previously, mint was locked out because this was borrowed. I can just immediately borrow this back if I wanted to. Yeah, there's all sorts of cool things you could do. But one of the things I wanted to show you was tokenize. So this is actually lets you do the NFT part.
And so when we were talking last night actually about tokenizing and how once it's detokenized, it burns the information from the first tokenized, was it? Or I'm getting something mixed up.
The NFT gets destroyed, and then if you like retokenize it,
It's a new NFT.
Yeah, it's a new NFT with a new ID. So, but anyway, this is tokenized now, so I can transfer. But do I have like a demo wallet? Another one. I guess I could just create one. Create an address. It doesn't matter. It's nifty. You can't see my MetaMask. That's useful. All right. So now I can come to this one. I hit transfer.
So do you think the very first hex stake, the person who wins the very, very first one, like you could probably make some JPEG images to say that this was the very first one, and maybe that has a historical value premium added on top of it, hey?
Yeah. But you can see here I hit transfer there, and that stake disappeared off my list. So if I actually switch MetaMask to that other address, there it is. So now on this address, I can detokenize it. Oh, of course, this address doesn't have any pulse. So let me fix that real quick. Yeah, I probably should have done that first.
Miracle 13 is asking, what percentage of current stakes do you think will get claimed in the first 100 days?
Man, I don't know.
I know, it's so hard to know, isn't it? I mean, how many people are in the Hedron chat now? There's over 2,500 people, hey?
Oh, yeah. At least. Almost 3,000.
2,707 members. So, and there's what, about 80,000 stakers, people guesstimate, hey?
Yeah.
So maybe there are some people who know about this but haven't joined the Hedron chat. But gee, it's a lot of information to know, and you get so much information out of that Hedron chat in the pasta and everything like that, you know, just and asking questions.
Well, a lot of people don't want to join the Telegram. I find it weird. Like on Twitter, I'm like, just go join the Telegram. You'll learn everything you want to know. Instead of asking me on Twitter when I've got 160 whatever characters of room to explain all of Hedron to you in. Or I can give you a link to Telegram, but they're like, oh, but I don't want to join random Telegrams. It's like...
Well, Telegram's awesome, man. That's becoming my main use now. When I tell people, when I meet people, I'm like, do you have Telegram? Because that's what I use. I don't like, this makes it so much easier for me.
Well, I have a Discord now. It's on the website. I have a Discord. There's a Reddit. I don't check the Reddit as much, but I do try to check it at least once a day. So, I mean, you can go to all those places. There's resources. You can search Hedron crypto in Google and find all of those things. You don't have to ask me for complicated things on Twitter.
So let's nut this out. So 2,700 divided by 80,000 is 0.0. That's only like 3%, 3.3%, 3.4% of people potentially who have hex stakes who know about Hedron. Let's say 3 to 5%. They're going to find out about it eventually. Yeah. Like when they find out they can print free money from their stakes. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of set and forget people. I know, you know, a ton of my onboards, I'm having to go through tutorials and send them things and blah, blah, blah. And all of those people, they wouldn't even know about it if they, you know, didn't have me kind of like getting that information out.
Yeah.
So there's going to be like it's not going to be many, I don't think, who claim during this period. Like, this is really a chance for everyone who knows about this stuff to become a Hedron whale, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same opportunity we had in Hex when the adoption amplifier was happening, right? It's like
Yeah.
everyone thought there was like, I want to say there were at least less than 10,000 people in the official Hex chat Telegram when Hex came out. I want to believe it was a similar number, like all around 3,000 people. I could be wrong about that. That was a couple years ago, but yeah. Well, anyway, so we have this tokenized stake. I sent it from one address to another. So let's detokenize it. And confirm.
And you can borrow on that, and you can get into a bidding war on yourself.
Yep. Yeah, I can totally do that.
Put people off the trail.
If God Whale comes into Hedron, I think that'd be the most bullish thing ever. Personally,
Yeah.
like God Whale could send Hex to 0 right now, but he doesn't.
Well, he doesn't put it to 0. He puts it to 17 zeros and a 1, because that's the lowest.
True.
That's the lowest it can go.
Well,
And
actually,
if it does ever get to that price, I guarantee. I don't guarantee anything, but I would think that it could probably do like a million X in a week if it gets that low,
oh yeah,
because it's not going to cost much to shift the price hugely up from that.
yeah. It would be incredibly bullish in my estimation if God Whale were to participate in Hedron. That will
Yeah, just as a publicity event, you know what I mean? God Whale, and even if they dump it, like, okay, that's just a ton of free Hedron for people. Like, it's, well, not free, but it's close to free Hedron for people, for the people who do want to play the game, you know? And yeah, like, for people who don't know, the OA could stake for one day and become the biggest whale. That's the Hex OA. It could become the biggest Hedron whale very easily, probably after the launch phase. Because if they did it during the launch phase, then the SA would get a copy. Or maybe they want to have the SA have a copy, and so they be two equal huge whales in there.
Yeah. I think the OA claiming is I'm taking a stance of I think it's unlikely. I don't think it will happen. If it does happen, great. I would love it. But you know, I'm managing my own. I have no expectations of the OA, and you should have no expectations of the OA and the SA. I have no expectations of the SA either. I mean, just no.
Look, I'm gonna guess that the Hex OA has just done anything that is supportive of the Hex price, and I can't see how the OA wouldn't see Hedron as supportive for the Hex price. So my guess is that they probably do nothing unless they feel that it is detrimental to the Hex price.
Yeah.
And I can't see how it would be.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of OA does nothing, have no expectations, because I expect. I guess if I'm expecting nothing, it's still an expectation. But you know,
I mean, what would be really nice is if the OA just like claimed on their current stakes, and that would be such an endorsement. I think I would read that as an endorsement.
Yeah, but the OA would know that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the OA doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. Well, unless they thought, wow, Hedron is super price positive for Hex, and they wanted to endorse it. But they might wait for after the launch phase. Look,
Yeah, they might wait.
who knows? Pardon?
I think they'll wait a while. If the OA is going to do it at all, I think they're going to wait quite a while. Personally, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see day one OA apes in. That would be super cool. But
yeah,
I find it unlikely.
No, I don't think that'll happen. No.
But anyway, so I'm trying to backtrack here. So we've sent the NFT to this new wallet, and I've detokenized it. So now I have control of stake. So now if like this wallet wants the 53 million or 53,000 Hedron, I could just mint it here. Like it's effectively my stake, or it's effectively this new address is staked now. It's been moved. So I can mint it. I can end it. Whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Send it to a friend.
Is my mic wrong? Someone said my mic's wrong.
It's sometimes when I think your mouth isn't pointing, it sort of changes a little bit. Yeah.
It's very directional.
Oh yeah, and there's something where it changes its sound every now and then. I'm not sure what that's about, but we can understand you.
I guess that's the important part. Try this too. Just to press that button, I think. Anyways, so yeah, that's the whole app. I mean, nothing's really. These are all the features. This is the AMR stats here. Can you guys even see my highlights? Oh, yeah, cool. So, yeah, that's all the features of Hedron laid out very simply. Let's see if these auctions. We'll bet on this. Oh, I'm out of money. Oh wait, no, I'm not. I just remembered my last bid.
Hedron Clyde wants to know when you're going to quit your day job and become a full-time king.
What? I guess I gotta become like Richard to buy a castle first, right?
Yeah, a throne and a castle for sure.
Yeah. I just like bidding on stuff on Testnet. It's fun. But yeah, that's Hedron. I think we've covered the audit. We'll run through the Testnet app. It's exactly how it's going to be. I'm already working on version 2 of the Testnet app. It's not even out yet, but yeah.
Awesome, and that will be. It will have a few different. Well, can you talk about what kind of things you're thinking about, or you don't want to have no expectations, or?
Yeah, no expectations. Cool things.
Okay.
There-
Cool
there-
things.
There'll be more data, more cool things.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, this is that feels like a good place to end the stream, unless there's any questions that people would like to ask, or if anybody wants to last chance to jump on to the live stream, if anyone does want to talk, or
Yeah.
I think that's T-Bird's asking, will there be multiple front ends? I guess someone will have to build it, hey?
Oops. Highlighted the wrong one. Oh. Sure, we'll do both of those actually. But there will be multiple front ends, presumably, right? Like there's nothing that prevents anyone else from making one. So I can make my official one, and someone else who likes Hedron can just go make their own. Do this one too. So launch phase is going to start. So like day 1, first day you can mint. It's gonna be February 26th, midnight UTC, which is in like I have a countdown.
It's like 4 or 5 days, huh?
Yeah.
What?
4 days almost exactly. So.
All right.
So
96 hours from now.
Yeah, it's gonna be super cool. So when that happens,
and we should do a launch party for that as well. Hey, we should have a launch and a little countdown to it going live. And maybe we could get a few other Hedronians on the live stream and just have a little countdown party.
So, but anyway, that's going to happen, and there's going to be like day 1 through 10, you'll get a 10x bonus for minting or claiming, whichever you do, and then day 11 through 20 is 9x, and so on and so forth, until it runs out after 100 days. And it's going to be a lot of people rushing in on that one.
Yeah, in short, you're just highly incentivized to at least claim on all of your native stakes in that first 10 days. And if not, then in the second, from days 11 to 20 and so on. You're going to get a huge Hedron bonus that is attached to that stake for the whole length of the stake. So it's, if you're finding out this knowledge now, it's very easy to claim. You just go to the website, you connect your MetaMask, all of your native stakes will come up and you can just claim against them. probably going to cost about $20 for each stake, and I would suggest it's highly worth it.
I can't suggest that, but I would like to.
I can say anything I want.
Yeah,
And
you-
also, just to let you know, actually, some people probably don't know, but like I'm not paid or anything like that. I'm completely just voluntary. I haven't been paid by anyone for Hex. I haven't been paid for anyone for. Well, actually, I got offered a job to onboard people onto Hex and Pulse from an Australian company, and so I was doing that for a little bit. But like I have not been paid a cent for any of this. All of the mods, no one's being paid. Alex isn't being paid. It's all just people kind of volunteering their time and their energy and their money. The money in the terms of, you know, Alex paid for the audit, and, you know, whatever he pays for, you know, getting a restream professional so that we can do this live stream. And, you know, I did buy a few URLs, you know, that I thought might come in handy in the future. And, you know, but it's really just all voluntary, all of this. We are benefiting in terms of, we think you know, a lot of us hold Hex and we think it'll pump our bags, and this gives us amazing kind of optionality, and in that way adds huge value to Hex. Yeah, but no, yeah, there's no team. Like, it's all just people who want to spend their time doing this.
Yeah, and the community's been great. Community's been just growing and being helpful, and like it feels a lot to me like early Hex did, when everyone kind of just came together and we're like, we're gonna make this something awesome. And
Absolutely. And, you know, it's been beautiful being a part of it, seeing it all happen, you know, like people coming up with memes and, you know, GIFs and spreadsheets, and, you know, people spending time in chat explaining it to other people. Like, it's like people just doing whatever they can do, or what they want to do. You know what I mean? And they're very happy to do it because, you know, it's out of abundance. It's not out of, I have to do this. And like, it's so strong. Like DAOs, like decentralized autonomous organizations, that's how you operate them, I think. Like, when everyone is just volunteering and doing it out of, you know, love and because they want to, and they find significance and meaning in it. You know, that's incredibly strong as an organization. And it's just going to grow as more and more people understand it, and people become financially independent because of it. It's gonna, you know, and we've got Hedron God coming in.
Yeah.
Make any update from the stake Hex today incorporating Hedron stakes?
yeah, I believe I know.
Oh, that's K, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, I know he's already like started the work on it, but you can also I've put I think this works actually. I think this actually works on Testnet. Let me try it. I'll show you guys. Go back. Sorry, gotta go back to what I was doing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this already works, which would be great. Allow. Okay. Come to these liquidations. Oh, this will take a minute. We'll do it here. When I hit stake info, there's a button right here. It's for stakehex.today. That'll take you to that HSI address, and you can see its stats.
That is awesome. That is so cool.
So, yeah, like I'd like to put some more information here eventually, but yeah, like that part's already gonna work day one.
Nice. Yeah, and that StakeX today is a fantastic website. It's a little bit moon when you start playing with those variables.
They're pretty conservative.
Like when you actually like do the math, like you're like, you know what, this is actually not that crazy. But
even when you do it conservatively, it's ridiculous. Like, yeah.
So the AMR bonus is cool. It's basically like, think of it this way: you have total supply, right? Like all the coins in existence, all the Hedron. If more than half of those coins is borrowed. So it's essentially a debt, right? If more than half of them are there, the AMR bonus is going to start handing out bonuses to people who are minting on that specific day when it crosses that 50% threshold of people borrowing. So once you're going to see that, the app will actually tell you what the bonuses will be, and it only applies for that day. It's not locked in like the launch bonus, but that compounds with your launch bonus. So if you get like a 10x, and then like let's say 60% of total supply is borrowed, you're effectively getting like a 30x bonus if you mint on that specific day. So
let's just clarify that actually. So if it's 1% over, it's a 0.2 bonus. Is that right?
yeah.
Okay, so if the borrowed Hedron is 51%, which would make the minted Hedron 49%,
Yeah.
then that would trigger the AMR, and so for 24 hours, there'd be this extra 0.2 bonus. So what you would do is, if you had the launch bonus as well, you'd get days served multiplied by B shares plus days served multiplied by B shares multiplied by 10 if it was during the first 10 days, plus days served multiplied by B shares multiplied by the launch 10 multiplied by 2.2.
Yes.
All of that added together. So what a lot of people are doing, hashtag never mint, is they're claiming and not minting. And they're going to wait for that AMR bonus to kick in. And on that day, my guess is there's going to be an absolute ton of supply come onto the market. Well, not onto the market necessarily, but it's going to come into existence. And therefore we're going to shoot up the ladder, the market cap ladder on that day. I think it's going to be mental.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think a lot of the bigger wallets just don't mint. Like I mean, like what we were
Really?
talking about, like yeah, like if you've got 51%, like think about it, right? Let's say you have a stake and it can mint 1 billion Hedron, right? With a 10x. So if AMR goes 1% over, so 0.2x on the AMR bonus, just one. Well, your 10x is now a 12x. It's an extra 2x your stack on 1 billion Hedron. Like it's a lot. So I think if you have the ability to mint a lot, you're most incentived to just claim. Because if you mint, you're making AMR less likely to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I'm saying is once it's triggered, those wallets will be minting like no one's business. And so that's 12 billion Hedron coming on. And because so many people are going to be incentivized to bid then. But it's also going to be interested. Like maybe some whales are trying to push it over the 1%. Like maybe they see it getting, it triggers over the 1% and they just start borrowing on a whole lot of their big HSIs to kick the bonus up as far as possible. So it's because if it becomes 60% that's borrowed and only 40% in the system that's minted, that will be a whole, would it be a 2x? That's a 30x.
Well, combined with a 10x launch bonus.
Oh, so that's a 3x. Yeah. So no, 3x?
Let's do math.
So it's 0.2 for every percent. So if it's 10%, so that's 20. So it's a point. So it's a 2x.
10.
So it's a 2x. So because if they have a launch bonus, it's a 20x. So then so it'll be a 21x on whatever Hedron they have.
It's more than that because it compounds. Add the two together.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh god, that's gonna be. So if they decide to push it over, that's gonna be just such a ton of Hedron coming onto the market. I mean, maybe the price just goes super down when that happens as well.
It might, but I mean, that will be the game, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it does. Maybe the whales make a ton and they don't sell it all. Maybe they hold on to it.
Yeah, or they try to keep the liquidity really thin, so you can't just sell a ton of it.
Yeah, or maybe they just bid liquidations to hell. I don't know what they do with it, but there's a lot of game. Like if AMR triggers it something stupid like 30 or 40x compounded, right? It's not just whales that benefit from that. Even if the price goes down, everyone who minted is just they're just rebalanced, right? So if anyone benefits, it's the people borrowing, because now they can rebuy super cheap to pay their loans back.
Yeah,
So,
right.
like
So they
that's
crash the
point-
price.
That's the whole
But if
point
they
of
have it all-
AMR, is to restrict, like the whole reason it exists is to restrict the possibility that that everyone can borrow and there's not enough minted supply and the price moons and no one can pay back.
Yeah, and that really would hurt the little people
Yeah.
who are kind of buying Hedron off the market to pay back their borrow.
So it's
Which
really,
is not something I'd recommend. Like I'd recommend like at least getting 2 stakes if you're going to borrow on one, at the very minimum, you know. But yeah, in the future, who knows? Like someone tries to, you know, if someone coming in 5 years and they, you know, can get barely any B shares, and so they're trying to kind of like use it as an advance to get their next paycheck or whatever, and then all of a sudden the price of Hedron moons on them, and it's like, oh shit, can't pay it back.
so I like this. AMR is the new big payday. It's like,
It totally is.
and
Yeah.
and you can trigger it again if you want to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I think that's the thing people need to understand the most, though, is that when it does trigger, like price is probably going to dip. It's designed to make the price dip because it's you found yourself in a situation where the price was getting too crazy.
Uh-huh.
So
yeah,
so
look, and I don't want you to necessarily comment on this, but one thing that I've thought about, and I think some other people have been talking about, is this proof of benevolence. And like it's almost like the SA has a copy of all the bonuses. If they want to trigger the AMR, they run the proof of benevolence, burn a whole lot of Hedron. That triggers the AMR bonus. Because everyone's minting, they're getting a copy of all of those bonuses, whether it's the launch bonus or plus the AMR bonus. But then they can do that kind of a certain amount of times before all the launch bonuses run out. So it's kind of like they have a trigger they can pull, but they can only pull it a certain amount of times.
like it would be limited. Like at some point, the supply would be so gigantic that it wouldn't have a big effect. So, but I don't know. I have no expectations of the source address, and it may never call that function. I don't know.
Yeah. Look, I don't even know if I was in the position of being that person who would decide. I don't even know what kind of things that I would even consider in order as to whether to do that or not.
It's like it may never make sense to them. I'm not in that headspace, but yes, the AMR is a metric. It's on here. I'll show you. I had the dApp open, so it's easy.
Yeah, it's on the website, and it'll be because it's like a big payday event. It'll be something that people sort of see that it's getting closer towards it, and you'll see it on Twitter, you'll see it on the website probably. Well, you see it definitely on the website. You'll probably see it all over Twitter.
Yeah, especially
and Telegram and
50% people
live streams. Sorry, say that again.
I was saying, like, if it ever gets close to 50%, people will definitely have it on Twitter.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so should we leave it there?
Yeah, it's been a good stream.
It's been. We're just hitting the 2-hour mark. That's probably a good amount of time.
Yep.
So thanks, Alex, for being so open. Thanks for making Hedron. Thanks for doing all the work you do. It's amazing. Thanks to all of the people in the chat with your energy. People in all of the different Hedron chats, Hedronologists and Hedron mods and everything. We're the people who make this community, and so all of your energy is kind of like whether it's going to be a success or not. And I think it's definitely going to be a success. I feel really privileged to have been part of it. And yeah, do you want to just close it out, Alex?
Yeah, you can't stop smiling there, Blue. You must be real excited. But yeah, I mean, when I first, the very first thing I did when Hedron was at a point of being able to go like live, I was going to tell people about it. First thing I did was make a Twitter, right? And I was expecting this to go so bad, so horribly. And you know, the website's out, and there's like a little bit of testnet, you know, all that kind of stuff's happening, and it was just so opposite. Like, I mean, sure, there's been some fun, but so all these people, you've come, nomads, you know, all the mods, all tons of all the other, like 2,700 people in chat, and maybe like 1-2% have been negative and fuddy. Like, you know, everyone's just excited. Everyone's just pumped for it to exist and to be able to use it. And like the reception's been so overwhelmingly positive that, you know, I just have to thank all you guys, because this is exactly the opposite of I expected it to go. So it's been awesome so far, and it's gonna only be more awesome from here.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for the chat, and yeah, goodbye.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get a launch stream going, and we'll see about other streams. Hey.
Yep. I think we should do this more often. So. All right. Well, I will see you guys later.
See you, everyone.